Howard Webb and the PGMOL are a hypocritical mess. Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, once again we are sat here talking about Premier League referees, VAR, Howard Webb, the PGMOL and everything else in between, because once again it has overshadowed football. The authority figures have once again overshadowed football after what has been another controversial weekend, and in a big game like Arsenal-Manchester City, it obviously had to happen then to completely overshadow everything going into another international break. You know, we should be here talking about top of the table Tottenham going into the second international break of the season. Who on God's earth actually predicted Tottenham to finish top of the table going into the second international break of the season? Nobody! That's who. Nobody, unless you were crazy or unless you've got some sort of magical crystal ball. No one was expecting that, but we're not talking about that, are we? We're not talking about Manchester City losing back-to-back games, which is a rarity under Pep Guardiola. We're not talking about Arsenal overcoming a huge obstacle and beating Manchester City on Sunday, and of course getting rid of that mental block of beating Pep Guardiola's side on that day, and maybe that will have a massive impact on their title run going forward. We're not talking about Liverpool's solid start to the season either, are we? We're not talking about Chelsea's hit and miss start to the season. We're not talking about Man United's hit and miss start to the season. We're not talking about Luton being back in the Premier League for the first time in a number of years. Nope, or any other footballing story that's out there in the Premier League. No, instead what we are talking about once again is the inconsistency, the hypocrisy, and everything else in between when it comes to explanations in regards to Premier League referee standards, their usage of VAR, the PGMOL, and Howard Webb is the centre of it in this video, because he's gone on a talk show or a show in general with Michael Owen, and how Michael Owen gets that gig, I don't know. The most boring man in football gets his own show. Explain that one to me, but whatever the case, I digress. That's different to what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is Howard Webb's clutching at straws response to the Matteo Kovacic incidents that happened in the Arsenal-Manchester City game on Sunday, the biggest game of that weekend's round of Premier League fixtures, in which, once again, referees, VAR, overshadowed that game like it has done for a number of games in the opening exchanges of the new Premier League season. We're going to be talking about what Howard Webb said, the incidents that occurred, and everything else in between. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and very greatly appreciated. Also, get involved in the comment section. I'm sure you have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. That makes for great and interesting reading down below, so do get involved down there. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk about Howard Webb, PGMOL, and the incidents that occurred with Matteo Kovacic on Sunday. First and foremost, let me just say this. The PGMOL and Howard Webb were extremely lucky that the right result happened on Sunday. Extremely lucky. Obviously, what happened on that day is that Arsenal beat Manchester City by a goal to nil. Gabriel Martinelli proved to be the difference maker on the day. 1-0 to Arsenal. It was a brilliant performance by Arsenal. They really neutralised Manchester City in an excellent way. A way that I don't think anybody has really done in the Premier League before. It was a perfect performance by Arsenal. Brilliant result and a great game overall. That opinion isn't necessarily shared with the entire footballing universe, but I digress. The incident that overshadowed everything revolves around Matteo Kovacic. Matteo Kovacic not once, but twice made two very bad challenges that could have easily resulted in him being sent off, whether it be a straight red or whether it be by 2 yellow cards. However, he remained on the pitch. A red card was never shown in that game. Kovacic remained on the pitch. And that baffled a lot of people, and it was weird how he managed to stay on, particularly when the inconsistencies of previous incidents similar or less so similar than Kovacic's had obviously resulted in seeing a red card be brandished in a game in previous weeks. I, as a Liverpool fan, was infuriated by this because I had seen in the Liverpool-Tottenham game 2 of my players get sent off, both for challenges that were softer than what Kovacic produced. I saw Curtis Jones get sent off for a challenge that Kovacic produced a similar challenge. It was even a worse challenge in my opinion, because it was A, from behind. It was B, late. It wasn't like it was a 50-50 like what Jones was. It was just late and it was from behind. And it could have really ended up being much worse than what it was. At least with the Curtis Jones one, I can somewhat understand why the red card was given. I can sort of see why the red card was given that previous incidents like that had been also brandished a red card. But for whatever reason, Kovacic's wasn't. It wasn't a red card. But that, in my opinion, it was much worse than those, because it was late and it was studs up, studs showing, right down the ankle of Martin Odegaard. I also don't understand how the second yellow wasn't a second yellow, especially when you consider that Diogo Jota got sent off for a double yellow in the same game of Liverpool versus Tottenham for incredibly soft fouls. The second foul was stupid. The second foul, I agree, was a yellow card. But when you compare that one, and especially the one where he gets a yellow card for the Tottenham player tripping over himself, in comparison to what Kovacic produced on both occasions, how did Kovacic not get sent off? And it goes back to my original point on this, of the PGMOL blew a huge sigh of relief when the Arsenal result went in Arsenal's favour. Because they would have had to issue another apology. They've already had to issue 3, to my knowledge, this season. 3. It would have been a 4th had that result stayed a draw or gone in Man City's favour come the end of the game. They would have had to have issued a 4th one. Baffling he stayed on the pitch. Incredibly frustrating at the inconsistency of Premier League referees, particularly as a Liverpool fan. But just because the result went in Arsenal's favour shouldn't mean that we sweep under the carpet and we forget all about it. We still need to call these out, especially as Liverpool fans. We need to call this out, because again, it could happen to us again. It could happen to another team, whether they are your rivals or not. We should still call out these particular issues. We should still call out these particular poor displays of refereeing and usage of VAR. Just because the result went the right way shouldn't mean by any means necessary we sweep under the carpet, which a lot of people seem to have done. People seem to say that, oh, Arsenal won, we shouldn't matter about that. Yes, we should. Because not only does it mean that Kovacic should be suspended for at least the next game, what if he has a big say in that next game? And we turn around and go, well, he shouldn't have been playing in that game, he should have been sent off. These kinds of things should not be swept under the carpet just because the result on this particular day went the correct way. And Howard Webb's response on Michael Owen's show, in which obviously he gets Howard Webb on to talk about the weekend's incidences and how they got to them results and everything, was baffling to say the least. Baffling to say the least. We're going to be taking a look at the footage right now and talking about it, but I, for one, am completely frustrated by the referee and the usage of VAR. And now Howard Webb's response to everything that happened this weekend is even more baffling and hypocritical. So let's get on with it.
We want to be as consistent as we can be throughout every game among our group, dealing with the same situations in the same way each week. But of course, all situations vary slightly. We accept and understand this.
I agree with him so far. Things are different and there is a grey area that obviously needs to be looked at. But again, that's your job. You'll want to be consistent. Doesn't appear to be happening anytime soon. So again, that's your job.
And this is clearly a poor tackle, and I'm pretty confident if a red card had been given by Michael Oliver on the day, it would have been a very straightforward check complete, but he doesn't. He issues a yellow card. I think there's a few...
So what you're saying is that with the on-field decision not being overturned as a yellow card for the first tackle, VAR was right to not interfere. if it had been given a red card straight away, VAR was again right to not interfere. So what you're saying is that it should have been a red card. And again, that really frustrates me because as I saw Curtis Jones's tackle last week, his initial challenge was given as a yellow card. VAR looked at it, and they looked at it in either slow motion or just by the photo of Jones's foot making contact with Basuma's leg, and said, you might want to look at this, it might be a red card. So why was VAR getting involved for that one, in what was given more context to it, sort of understandable as to why Jones made such a challenge in the way that he did, but not this one, in which he is obviously late, he is obviously at a bad angle. Why was one given and one wasn't? If you want to talk about consistency, if you want to talk about the way that obviously if the on-field decision had been one or the other, it would have just been left alone. How does that work when I saw last week my own two eyes an on-field decision given as a yellow card, similar sort of challenge, similar sort of area, but one had more context to it than the other?
Differences. The player Kovacic comes into the tackle with the right leg. There's some weight on the left leg as he kind of lunges in. The right heel hits the ground.
Look at that. Should it matter? Should it really matter about hitting the ground and things like that? Like, don't get me wrong, it should. It should. But there are limits to that. There are limits to that. Look at that. Look at that challenge.
And then the contact is a little bit more to the side with a kind of like an upright foot as opposed to a side-on foot that we saw with Gusto. A few small differences, I think, that led the VAR to feel that the on-field decision here of a yellow card wasn't clearly and obviously incorrect, and therefore...
Clear and obvious. I hate this clear and obvious thing. I've hated it for years. I hate it then. I hate it now. Clear and obvious. What's clear and obvious to you might not be clear and obvious to me. And it's this horrible grey area that referees and VAR hides behind. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible, and it needs to be sorted out, because this is what makes it subjective, this is what causes debate, and this is why referees can make poor decisions and they can make these poor arguments as to why they came up with these poor decisions. It's terrible, it's awful, and I don't understand it, and I don't understand how they've managed to...
For check completing it, feeling that if it had intervened, it would have been a re-refereeing of that decision by the referee on the field.
So what about the second one? I know we're not going to show it, but do you think he was fortunate to stay on for the second yellow card a little bit later on?
I do. I mean, obviously the VAR can't get involved. The second yellows are something that the VAR is not...
Should that be changed? That's my question here. Should that be changed? Should second yellows that result in obviously red cards, should that be changed going forward? Should the protocol and law be changed for VAR to be allowed to look into second yellow cards for players? I'm not 100% sure on the micromanagement style, and I'm not even 100% sure they get it right anyway if the law was to change to that. But I would love to know your thoughts in the comments section.
Not able to get involved in, but yeah, I think he was an extremely fortunate player to stay on the field of play. Of course, the referee, one of our best referees, one of the best referees in the world, Michael Oliver, will no doubt review that. He doesn't want to have a negative impact on the game by overreacting to something, and sometimes...
That's the key one for me. He doesn't want to have a negative reaction on the game by overreacting to something. That is the key one in this. And I tell you for why. We have had the past week or two of referees, the PGMOL, VAR, whoever it is, coming out to us and saying there are strict protocols to this game. You cannot overstep those boundaries. You cannot, just for one particular incident. There was an incident on Soccer Saturday between Mike Dean and Paul Merson. Mike Dean was claiming that he doesn't like the idea of former players being allowed to referee and be VAR in games because they don't know the laws and protocols for the game. And his evidence for that was he didn't want the game to stop or the game can't stop whenever you feel like it. Paul Merson blew up at this, and rightly so. Merson was completely right to obviously debate and argue that point. We've had the past week or two, though, of them claiming that there are laws, procedures, there are protocols in place for the games, for incidents like this, incidents like the Luis Diaz situation last week, that need to be followed. If a player's got to go, as much as we want the game to stay 11v11, if a player's got to go, he's got to go. He's got to be sent off. In this situation, in my opinion, Kovacic deserved to be sent off. I know it's a big game. I think it happened relatively early on in the first half, or at least halfway through the first half. I get that. But if he needed to go, he needed to go. How many times have we seen a big game where an early challenge is made, possible red card, not given? How many times have we seen a second yellow that should be given, not given because it happens early on in the game and it should be given, not given? Just because you want it to stay 11v11 shouldn't mean that it's right to keep it that way. If a player's got to go, he's got to go. And after a week or two of you guys, the PGMOL, telling us, the fans, that there are laws to this game, there are procedures to this game, there are protocols to this game. You cannot overstep those boundaries. If you're sat there picking and choosing what you give as a yellow card, what you give as a red card, and you're just basically going off of vibes, you're going off of the occasion, you're going off of what the game is like, a derby, a feisty encounter, a title match, a title contenders match, whatever the thing may be. You're not following your own procedures and protocols. Do you not understand how hypocritical that sounds to us, the fans, when you give that reaction? And this is the head of the PGMOL. This is the head guy. This is the head honcho. This is the chief. I'm baffled. I'm baffled by that response. It's crazy to me.
Players will be on a yellow card, and then there'll be pressure to show a second one. Pressure will come from the players on the field. But, you know, that's also true that if you underreact, you have a negative impact on the game. So I think when he reflects on it, he'll realise that the second one should have been a yellow card as well.
So what you're saying there is that he definitely should have been sent off. What you're saying there is he should have been sent off. Are we going to get an apology? Are we going to get another apology for that? Because the head of the PGMOL said that Michael Oliver made a poor decision and should have sent him off? Of course not. Because Arsenal won the game. And that's the bottom line here. Arsenal won the game. So we're just going to sweep this under the carpet. We'll address it. We'll say that, yeah, subjective. Some of these go for you, some of these don't. You got it wrong on this occasion. But Arsenal got the result. So who cares? Wrong. Absolutely 100% wrong. And like I say, the clear and obvious stuff is a massive grey area. This is a grey area that referees are going to continue to exploit whenever they make poor decisions and poor judgment. And the hypocrisy of following procedures and protocols when it suits them is baffling to me. Absolutely baffling to me. And things need to be sorted. He needs to either address it or he needs to walk away. Everybody else in a position of power or some sort of say and authority, Mike Dean in particular, the Soccer Saturday incident that I referenced earlier, that is an incredibly baffling clip. You need to watch that in the way that he tries to justify his thoughts on the matter. It's baffling. It's baffling to me, and I am so confused by it, and I'm so frustrated by it that I'm once again talking about these kinds of particular incidents. But those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of these overall incidents? I'm sure you'll have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. That might be great and interesting reading down below in the comments section. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up if you enjoy the video. Subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things are always very greatly appreciated. And of course, you lot, thank you very much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I'll see you speak to you all again soon in another video, live stream, or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Have a good one. See you soon. Take care.